So let's take this occasionally dishonest casino one more time, and where in this section we'll talk about those emission probabilities and transition probabilities. We know that a casino uses a fair die most of the time, but sometimes they occasionally switch to the loaded one. So let's see what is the probability of different outcomes. The outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these different numbers. If the die is fair, they come like 1 out of 6 of the time. So their probability is 1 by 6. What if we use the loaded die? So here in this example, we see that probability of all numbers 1 through 5 is 1 by 10, since the probability of getting 6 is 1/2. So these probabilities within the state, what is the probability of seeing these individual numbers, is actually called as emission probabilities. So assuming that casino switches from a fair to a loaded die with a probability of 0.05 before each roll, and the probability of switching back is 0.1, then the switch between dice is a Markov process. So Markov process is where we switch from one state to another, and when we switch it, obviously the probability of one state in which we go depends upon the previous state. So here is what is happening. We are using these fair die, and while we are using those fair die, out of 100 trials, we do that for 95 trials. So that is like probability is 0.95. And then for 5 of those different throws, we move into this side. So out of 100, 5 times we are using this one. So probability, this probability is transition probability from here to here. While you are here in one of the states like fair state, what is the probability of seeing different numbers 1 through 6? So that is 1 by 6. So these probabilities are your emission probabilities. Same way in the loaded, while you are in a loaded, you will do like, or 90% of the time you stay here. And if you are doing now onwards, if you are doing 100 trials again, you do that for 90 out of them, which is the probability is 0.9. And then for 10 of the times you use that fair die. So switching from loaded to fair is 0.1, and switching from fair to loaded is 0.05 or 5%, and this one is 10%. So how can we use that this information? So what part is hidden in this, that casino did what the casino did with the state sequence, that is hidden. So we need to look into those chain of events and try to use our own judgment. So for example, here we get those fairs, and then they use loaded, and then they use fair. So that kind of thing is hidden. So what we are seeing actually is the emission of symbols. What we are seeing is we are not seeing the loaded die or the fair die, since they are having the same structure and they are having the same colors. You cannot judge them. What you are looking actually is those outcomes which are coming. So in this case, this whole thing is hidden. So the sequence of how many fair trials are there and how many loaded trials are there is hidden. What are the observables? So in this system, what you observe is, as we have seen, is the series of those dice, and your observables can also be transition probability. So you can observe those transition probabilities, while once you get a doubt, then you can look into occurrence of some specific numbers. If it is coming after how many tosses, from there you can draw some transition probabilities. So then we make an inference out of it. We model our system, and then model assigns the probability to each explanation. For example, we have this, we throw these 3 tosses, and we get these numbers like 3, 2, and 6, while the die was fair, and loaded. So for that we can use their conditional probabilities, and here we can use the conditional probability of 3 while it is fair, and then we see that there is a transition probability coming in. So we are moving from fair to fair state. then we have 2 while we are in that fair state, and then we use that probability of moving from fair to loaded. So in that case, when you can get the this probability of this 3, 2, and 6 number while their states are fair, fair, and loaded. So we can use their conditional probabilities, and for this sequence we can get the probability of the whole sequence while plugging in these values. While we are making the inferences, we can also use those maximum likelihoods. So we can determine which explanation is most likely, and then we can draw on different paths. So when we talk about different algorithms which are there in this hidden Markov models, we'll talk more about their paths and what is the most probable paths, these kind of the things. So you try different paths or you try different models. So you assume that it can be a fair, fair loaded trial, or it can be a loaded, 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 or whatever different pathways you can get it, and you can calculate through their probabilities. And in the end, you can make your inferences whether your dice were all loaded or they were all fair, or what was the sequence behind that. And same thing you can model for your systems in which you would like to identify some genes or some specific sequences. So in the end, we can determine the probability that the observed sequence was produced by this HMM. So that will be calculated. I will talk about when we will have those algorithms coming into the later sections. So by the help of HMM, sequence of random observations that can be generated, and we can also get the idea about the underlying states.